This is Evita and Sean Duffy here at the Federalist with a new podcast from the Federalist, From Z to X.
Hey everybody, good to see you, and good to see you, Evita, via Zoom or Skype or whatever we're on.
Good to see you too. So we're going to talk about some campus insanity today. First, we're going to talk about a Canadian university who had a professor say that she only allows Black and brown / female students to speak first in her class. So I'm going to read you a quick quote from her. What she says, which she was speaking to a number of activists when she revealed that this is what she does in her classroom, and she said when she is first introduced to her students, she says, if you're white and you look like me and you raise your hand, I'm not going to pick on you before someone of color. So what are your initial thoughts to that, Dad? How does this compare to what life was like when you were in college?
So, I mean, listen, I think this is absolutely outrageous. I think that we should have equality in our school systems. And so sometimes kids don't actually want to speak in class. They might not have prepared. Sometimes I didn't prepare and wouldn't want to be called on. And I think you want to facilitate a really good discussion. And by saying I'm only going to call on, women or, minorities first, I think that creates a lot of weird dynamics in school. And I think the intent here is to say we want to have more women speak during class. We want more minorities to speak during class. We want white men to shut up, right? That's the intent. But what I think it creates a lot of tension with people by not having an equality of opening class up for all discussion for everybody, because I would imagine that everyone who's going to that university, by the way, this is a Canadian university. Yep. I think that everybody pays the same amount. We're all paying for an education. Why are we favoring one group of people over another? But have you seen this on campus before as well?
Yeah, I have. So I was in a class this year and I had a very woke professor. Most of them are. And this one has said on multiple occasions during class, if you are a man, stop talking right now. Stop raising your hand in class, or virtually raising your hand, because it was over Zoom. And I want to hear some women speak. It really, I felt like it was an awkward situation, because one, it put a lot of pressure on all the girls in class. Okay, we got to say something now. But also a lot of guys who were contributing. And to be clear, there are more men in this class than there were women. So it made sense that more men were talking. And so I think it made them really uncomfortable. Like they didn't feel like they were able to speak up in class because she didn't want them to, which is not good for a college classroom and for, real discussion when you're trying to amplify other voices over different people. And so I think that they're actually doing exactly what they say they're trying to root out in university culture or in America in general, because you're replacing discrimination with more discrimination, allegedly. So I don't know. It's just kind of crazy.
Which is interesting, because discrimination breeds resentment, right? And so when you have more resentment, whether it was historic discrimination or you want to discriminate now, by the way, two wrongs never make a right, more discrimination will breed more resentment. And that doesn't make racial tensions or gender tensions any better. It will actually make them worse. But as a father, here's what I've noticed through the couple of graduations that I've been to. And I haven't done some study, but I've noticed that if I go to a graduation and I look at, who gets called up to the stage at graduation for academic achievement, men or women, I would argue that probably 80 to 90% of the academic achievement awards in high school graduation go to women, not men. And Princeton found that maybe women don't speak up as much in class, but they're outperforming men academically. And I see that with the awards in graduation. So if you want equality and you see women doing better than men, don't we want to raise, both genders to do well? Because if you keep suppressing boys don't grow up to be men and providers, and you're going to have these little basement boys, pajama boys, that don't know how to work, that don't know how to provide for their families. And there are going to be a whole bunch of men that women don't want to marry, because they're a bunch of unaccomplished woke little babies.
Yeah, that's what I was so interested. I was watching a documentary recently on like this incel movement of these men who like deeply resent women and like refuse to have girlfriends because they just like hate them so much, and they feel like the world is out to get them. And in some ways, they're not helping themselves. They're being babies, like you said, but also we've created this kind of academic environment that I don't think helps men succeed. There's been tons of studies that say that, the classroom is set up for women to do well and for men to do poorly. And so there's that. And then there's what you said. I mean, women are just people, because we think that women need all this help to do better in school. Then we have all these programs that are just for women, or just for, Hispanic, women, or just for Black women. And then it's like, people end up feeling like they don't really matter. And that's kind of what we talked about. I think it was 2 weeks ago, the professor at U Chicago was saying, this is happening. I'm seeing it happen. I've witnessed us discriminate against white males just because they're white males, and it's wrong. So it's just.
So as I look at this, first, if you historically, may schools have been set up to favor men over women? That's possible. I haven't seen the study on that, but if that did happen and you want to remedy it, you don't try to flip it on its head and go, well, now what we're going to do is discriminate against men in favor of women. What you should do is try to build a class system of equality where everyone can rise and everyone can learn. And discrimination, if it wasn't good 50 years ago or 30 years ago or 100 years ago, it's still not good today. And my concern on a broader perspective is we just don't compete. We're from Wisconsin, but Wisconsin doesn't compete against West Virginia and Minnesota, against Michigan and Florida, against, Texas. We compete internationally. We actually compete against China and India. They don't have these kind of rules. They let the most talented, the smartest, the most well-spoken people rise to the top. You want the best talent, not the most woke talent or the most socially oppressed people. You want the best people to work for your companies if you're going to do the best competing against other kids in other parts of the world. And I think what we're doing is increasing the profile of people who may not be doing as well and trying to push down those who want to excel, whether you're a man, a woman, or a minority. I want the best talent. And if we're not doing that in America, other countries are, and that doesn't bode well for our future.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And we talked about that last week. I mean, the threat that is facing us, and us being behind, and all these other countries, and we're not doing anything to help ourselves. And so, we need to be letting the best man for the job excel and do well. And just because they have certain immutable qualities, we shouldn't be telling them, okay, you need to take a step back just because of the color of your skin or your gender. But so let's talk about another example of this that's related, university related. At Cornell University, they said recently that if you are a person of color, you can be exempted from taking the COVID vaccine. So specifically, they say students who identify as Black and Indigenous or a person of color may have personal concerns about fulfilling the compact requirements based on historical injustices and current events. That's the Cornell Health, organization there. So what are your thoughts on that initially?
So they have a rule on campus that says everyone has to get a vaccine, right? And that applies to all students. But now they've said, well, because of historical injustices with minorities, which is true, they said sometimes, minorities were given vaccines by people in power and they would do it for profit or for medical gain. Today, we're not going to make our minority students take these vaccines. The problem with that is if you believe that vaccines or inoculation of your population on campus is good for everybody, right? It's a healthy thing to do. Why on earth would you say a certain population shouldn't be required to get the vaccine, right? Number one, it undermines the inoculation of a population, first off. But second, if it's good for the person, which I'm not saying that it is, right? I'm not agreeing to their premise, but if you believe it's good, why is it good to say if you're a minority, you don't have to get the vaccine? It's absolutely idiotic from my perspective. I mean, what if the flu vaccine was racist? Okay, but the flu is not racist. It affects people whether you're Black, brown, or white. It affects everybody. So if flu vaccines are good, everyone should take them. And by the way, I think this goes to equal treatment and it goes to equal protection. If we think that this is right for everybody. Everybody should have to do it. You shouldn't get an exemption or an exclusion because of your color or your status in the population. That's just my take.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Well, I mean, per usual, it's a similar take. I mean, it's just, it seems bizarre to me. And as someone who, I'm a history major, I really am very interested in the history of eugenics and what, has happened in the past. And they're absolutely right. People who are brown and black have been really disproportionately affected by medical professionals in American history. And if you're, obviously with testing for different, vaccines or whatnot, but also like forced sterilizations. I mean, really horrible, crazy things have happened. And it makes absolutely perfect sense why people that are black and brown will be like, I'm not sure I really want to take this vaccine, because there's a mistrust in general of this new vaccine that's happening. This isn't something that we've tested and have had for 50 years. This is brand new, and so people are understandably concerned about it. And I think that it's unfair to say, okay, we're only going to allow some people not to take it based off of their skin color, when we all have real concerns about whether this is going to be safe and healthy for all of us to take. I mean, it is brand new. It hasn't been through trial and error. We don't know what the long-term effects are. And so you're right. Just like you said, I have no confidence in this vaccine if you're exempting people from it who might feel like it could be bad for them. I feel like it could be bad for me. Why can't I get exempt from it? Or am I not going to be allowed back on campus because you're going to force me to take this vaccine? I mean, there's a lot of mental loops going on here with the left's reasoning on this, and I'm not for it because I'm actually going to be the one that's affected by it. Somebody who's probably going to have to be forced to take it.
You're Hispanic. You won't have to take it. You're a minority, right?
That's true. That's true. Maybe but that's what's so funny too is identify. I love that word. They like identify as black and brown. It's like, if you're white and you identify as black, does that count? Like what? Like what is it? Like, I'm so confused. It's all this like mental loops that they're doing, and it's just crazy.
But it goes back to, I think, a broader issue that we see across the country. We see New York is shutting down all of their indoor dining. We've seen California shut down indoor and outdoor dining, but making exclusions for if you're in Hollywood and you're shooting, movies or TV shows, and you want to have craft services, you can come in and gather just like you would in a restaurant, but they get an exclusion because they give money to powerful Democrats. They're a powerful lobby, so they get excluded from rules. Where if you're just a lowly entrepreneur who's trying to make a living with your restaurant or your bar, and you don't have the political clout, you get shut out and have to shut down. I think if we go back to the idea of freedom, give people the right to choose. If the vaccine is good for me and my family, let me take it. If I don't want to take it, I don't want the government forcing me to take any drugs. I don't want them to force me to wear a mask, right? I don't want them to force me to not be able to go have a glass of wine or a dinner with my family. I want to make those choices for myself. And I might choose to just stay at home. I might choose to wear a mask. I might choose to take a vaccine. But in a free country, in a free society, we should make those decisions for ourselves. And what's scary is that we're having, at a very early age in our university system, having kids taught that, no, the all-powerful government can tell you, mandate to you certain things that you have to do, which is foreign to people who grew up in a different age. And not only that, they can say, there's also different standards. There's different rules for different people based on your gender, or your minority status. We have different rules for everybody, which we come from a country where we go, no, we believe that we're fighting for an equal society where everybody plays by the same rules, and we'll let them rise or fall based on the same set of rules. That's not the case anymore, and it's being taught to our kids at a very young age, and they'll go into the world thinking this is very normal. And kids that go where you go to the University of Chicago or go to Cornell or Princeton or Harvard, they'll come out and they'll be the leaders of tomorrow. They'll be running the companies that impact our lives. They'll be on the boards of the companies that impact our lives. Yeah. They're going to take these woke ideas and implement them in our country. And if you're China, you love this. This is great for the Chinese and for the Indians. It's really bad for America.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to make sure we clarify this point that a lot of times they try to argue that this vaccine, we take vaccines all the time, we mandate it for schools, we do, but we mandate vaccines that have been, tested for long periods of times. We know that they're safe, we know that it's okay to take, and with this vaccine, that's simply not the case. I mean, it is brand new.
But wait, hold on. By the way, we were never mandated to take vaccines, like the flu shot, in essence, when we were going to school. Now it's recommended, but we weren't required. And there's a lot of, whether you want to get the shingle shot, there's a lot of vaccines that a lot of us go, yes, they've been around for a while, and yes, the diseases are horrific, and we should get those vaccines, absolutely. But there's a lot of vaccines that are discretionary, and they should remain discretionary.
Yeah, great point. And I think that something else that was super interesting that you brought up about all of this hypocrisy in general, and these double standards that we're seeing from the left is that movie set, the viral video of the movie set, where that poor woman was saying, I have my outdoor dining area here. They're shutting me down in California, and right next to me there's this movie set, and they're able to set up and have this, their own little reception, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's so hypocritical, because and it's because probably that they're going to get money from the state, that the movie studio is renting it out and feeding the government, but NBC covered the story, and then they specifically took out the part of the story that had the movie set in it. They cut the video where she showed the movie set, and then later they redid the story. Then they went back to it and were like, oh yeah, and she did the movie set was there, and it's bad. But the reason they did that was because NBC was that movie studio. It was NBC producing a TV show, and so I think that this is. It's crazy, because you talk about them, basically taking over the world, these woke elites and these universities. They control everything. They're in the media too. I mean, everybody is complicit in this entire crazy narrative that we're living through right now. And it's frankly frightening.
And you see this yourself on college campus, the social pressure that a young conservative receives from professors and from the woke student body is really immense. And we see this today. People want to, kind of fight back and push back for this idea of liberty and freedom to choose. But you're shamed or you're blamed, whether it's in person or on social media or from big tech or from news channels or from Hollywood. And it makes people unwilling to stand up and go, I don't think this is right, because I don't want to get blamed. They want someone else to stand up and do it for them. And I think the only way we make changes is if we say, this is absolutely unacceptable. And by the way, Cornell University, all these universities, guess who helps fund them? You, the taxpayer, fund universities. And so when do taxpayers stand up and say, we're not going to fund this garbage? This is absolute garbage, and we're not going to allow for it. And we look oftentimes to the federal government to make these decisions, and they can, but states have a lot of power in what kind of money flows to their institutions. And if you push your legislators to say, we have to have a far more free enterprise system, we have to have a far better balance of ideas on campus. If you make those changes in your states, all of a sudden you're going to see different results in the kids that are coming out, because you're going to have a different mindset with the professors and the administration. But if you don't, you're going to have woke garbage like at Cornell saying one group of people don't have to take the vaccine and another group of people do. And again, that builds a lot of resentment, and that doesn't bring people closer together where we don't see race, we see people and work ethic and ideas. It's going to make people see race even more, which I think is not going to be making racism less prevalent in America. I think it's going to make everybody far more conscious of race, which I think will be worse for the country.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this, because you talked about like putting pressure on our legislators to fix this problem that we have, and it seems to me that when you see what's happening, and then they try to put pressure on the schools to not implement these crazy policies, you're still going to have these people there, these woke professors, these woke now increasingly indoctrinated students, and so it's just going to be a continuous battle between maybe legislators and parents, and then the administration, and then the faculty. And so my thought is the only way to fix this is to get to the source, is to stop the indoctrination at the teachers' colleges, but the teachers who are teaching the teachers are already indoctrinated. So what can we do for that? Because it seems like it's just going to be a repeating, continuous horrible cycle that won't end.
But oftentimes teachers go to college at state funded or federally funded institutions.
Mm-hmm.
So, but going back to your point, I mean, reach out to your assemblyman or to your state senator and say, this is really important. We shouldn't be funding the indoctrination of our kids, an American hating version of our history to our kids. We shouldn't be supporting racist policies in our universities. You guys have to take a look at this and fix it. And put it on the forefront of their burner, because if we don't get this under control, again, as I mentioned, these kids that are being indoctrinated in these left-wing institutions are going to run America. And
yeah.
The bottom line, listen, it's great if you have woke professors, that's wonderful. But if you also have some conservative, free-minded professors, then you'll have a debate. Right now, all you have is groupthink, leftist woke groupthink in schools. And the end result are crazy policies like what you see at Cornell. Why don't we say, make a debate happen in the faculty lounge and with the administrators, because there's a different set of ideas. It's just not, everybody agrees that of course we should, make sure that white guys don't speak first, and girls and minorities should speak first. And yes, African Americans and people of color shouldn't take vaccines, but white kids should. Challenge that. And if it's not being challenged, so everyone on these campuses in leadership thinks it's normal, and it's not. And you fund it, so let's stop the funding or mandate changes.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a concrete action that people could take. I also think you can go even further back than that. I mean, we've talked about this before on the podcast, that this is an indoctrination that doesn't just start at the university. It goes way farther back. I mean, it starts in elementary school. And that's where you can have a lot of control, actually, like you as an individual. If you run for the school board, you're figuring out what's in the curriculum. So if you're getting indoctrination, at the university, that's bad. But if you're getting it from kindergarten and on, you have no chance of ever getting out of this state of mind, of this leftist indoctrination. So I think that if you at least try and go back to the beginning, we might have some hope.
And I'm going to say this again, like I have in other podcasts. We as parents or grandparents have the ability to have a huge impact on our kids. We know the pressure they're going to get when they go to college campus. But if we talk to them, if we educate them, again, we talk about politics and policy and free markets and American history, we sit around our dinner table and have those conversations. They go in and they're far more able to confront the woke leftist mob than they would if you don't talk about these policies. And by the way, if you're in a classroom and you have a smart, young, free enterprise, American-loving mind that might push back on a professor, right? It's not just good for that kid. Other kids, other students in the class hear that pushback and they go, my buddy Jimmy made a lot of sense when he made that point, or Susie, great point. And you get other kids to think. So it's not just professors that are bringing out ideas, but other classmates. Your kids or grandkids are the ones that can help bring other students with them, and not just to the viewpoint of the leftist, woke faculty mob.
Yeah, and I think that I've thought about this before. Like, I love the dinner table, like little tidbit there, because I feel like the dinner table is where you're like in battle preparation. Like you're literally I mean, I come to you, we at the dinner table all the time. Jack and I, my brother Jack, second oldest in our family, will come and we'll ask questions and be like, hey, I just heard this. What do you think about it? And then we can kind of have a back and forth and talk through all of these different issues. And a lot of times the indoctrination that we're getting, and it's like we're preparing to go back into class and figure out how we're going to challenge what's happening. But I feel like, and it's happened to me before, I've been in a class and I've been like, I've known in the back of my head, like, wow, what this person is saying right now is crazy. And I don't agree with it, but it's scary and it's daunting to be the only person to want to speak up. Even if I'm in a Zoom class, it's scary. I'm not even in person, and it's daunting. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And sometimes I'm going to be honest, I don't, because it's scary. And so if you're not having those conversations on a daily basis and trying to, build up your armor to go into battle in the classroom, there's no chance you're going to say anything, and there's no chance the other students are going to hear an alternative perspective counterproductive either, because I guarantee you, you're not the only one who's thinking like, wow, that was a really crazy thing that this professor just said, or that teacher that just said, and then no one's going to stand up.
So isn't this, that's a great, interesting final point that we're going to make, which is, who really are the suppressed kids on campus? Who are the ones that don't have a voice on campus? Is it just in a box women, or in a box minorities, in a box white men? Or is it conservative kids, whether you're a man, woman, or minority? Is it those kids who don't actually feel comfortable expressing their point of view? And if you ask any conservative kid on campus, they would tell you they don't have the right, they don't feel like they have the freedom without significant backlash to give their points of view. And so who really is being tamped down? It's the conservative mindset, where kids on campus should be forced to debate and argue and feel free to challenge. And like in our house, and as you mentioned, we have a lot of conversations, and oftentimes Evita and Jack and others will come and they'll push us. We're wrong. And we'll like, be okay, well, we'll tell you why we think the way we do. And our kids might walk away disagreeing with us, but they know there's a different perspective out there. And what it takes also is, adults being fairly well educated on what's happening today. I don't use all the social media like you do, Evita. I'm an old guy, but we have to be aware of, what these conversations are and what's happening in woke universities. Like, again, white kids take vaccines, black kids don't. White boys don't speak first, but others do. If you know that stuff, you can have the conversation. So talk to your kids and grandkids. Save America.
Great point to end with. See you guys next week.
All right. Bye-bye.